I want to show you something really cool today. We're at my friend Doug's house out in Gilbert, Arizona. And the reason I wanted to bring you here is this man here is kind of the inspiration for what I'm doing now. About 10, 12 years ago, I was out at their home and I looked in the backyard and saw a forest of bananas and guavas and all sorts of cool stuff. And that really piqued my interest in growing tropicals out here in Arizona. So what I want to show you specifically today is what I think is the most important thing that I've learned from Doug is a healthy soil and how do you construct a healthy soil. In particular, regards to mulching. So what we're going to show you is what Doug is doing here in his yard. And he's been doing this quite a long time, so I would suggest paying attention to what the man has to say. And we're going to show you what he's doing and what the results of that are doing. So, Mr. Doug, what is it exactly that you're out here doing this morning?
Okay, well, basically, I'm turning my lot into a bare, vacant or grassy lot into a really nice, loamy, fertile soil. Okay. When I moved into this place, it was about 1990. And all it was just grass, a couple, 2 or 3 orange trees and old mesquite trees, but basically there's nothing. The ground wasn't really usable. It was so hard you couldn't do anything with it. When I tried to dig holes, it was about impossible to dig holes. It was so hard. So I started basically to replace the soil or rejuvenate the soil, I guess you could say.
Okay.
And from everything that I've read and my experience, the best way to do it would be to incorporate organic matter into the soil. So our soils here really, have not very much organic matter. It's a desert, so there hasn't been forest mulch built up over thousands of years. The best, fastest, easiest way to do it is to use mulch, wood chippings, or grass clippings. It helps the trees as it breaks down. It adds nutrients to the soil. It takes a little bit of nitrogen out to start, but after that it adds nitrogen back to the soil also. It also makes a huge difference in the water conservation. So if you put water on top of the ground, it evaporates after a couple of days and the tree roots dry out, and that's really the biggest thing that makes the trees grow is if you have a constant moisture level. Also makes a difference for the worms. When I started here, there was no worms on the property. Couldn't find any worms hardly at all. And so I put the mulch on, and then I went down to the local bait shop and bought 4 or 5 dozen different kinds of worms and put the worms in, and they have since multiplied. Now I have worms everywhere. And they aerate the soil and also add their worm castings back, which is one of the very best fertilizers you could ever get.
So for people starting off at home, let's say 2 recommendations. The first, bring in mulch.
Bring in mulch wherever you can get it. This is just grass clippings from the neighbors,
right,
that have save their grass clippings and give them to me. And this back here is the stuff from the tree trimmers, all different kinds.
So grass clippings, leaves, wood chips, basically anything that comes from there.
Anything you can get.
Is there any type of tree that you would not use, that you would refuse?
No, everything does work. But I haven't found anything that doesn't work. I don't like eucalyptus as much because it takes a lot longer to break down.
Okay.
But for a lot of people, having the eucalyptus on the soil, it takes longer to break down. You don't have to replace it as fast. And other people have said don't use oleander because oleander is poisonous. Well, it's poisonous if you and I eat it.
Right.
But when you put it on the soil and let the worms break it down, it's perfect. So I haven't found anything or heard of anything that you shouldn't use.
Right.
All seems to work great for me.
Okay. At what depth do you apply it?
As deep as I can.
Okay.
I know that sounds crazy, but I pile the wheelbarrow on top of wheelbarrows. So basically I'm 3 and 4 feet high, and it takes about a year for the worms to eat that down to nothing, and it will end up with only about a ½ inch of black compost. I've got places where the worm castings are now over 1 foot deep.
Right.
Which is fantastic. It's got all the roots. Just love it going there and pulling all the nutrients out.
So over a year's time, 4 foot of mulch becomes less than 1 foot.
More like an inch or less. It just breaks down. I'll show you a couple places where it was 4 feet deep a year ago, and now it's just worm casting.
If you're starting with only, let's say, 12 inches of mulch, realistically you're going to have to reapply that 3 or 4 times throughout the year.
Have to keep reapplying it. The other great thing about it is it kills any weeds. You'll find very little weeds and grasses on my property where I don't want them, because anytime something's growing, I just dump a pile of, a wheelbarrow full of mulch on top of it,
Right.
and smothers it out.
Okay. Do you find that because of your mulching practices that you do not have to reapply compost or worm castings over time, because now that you've created this ecosystem, this microclimate, all you need to do is just basically keep reapplying mulch?
Keep reapplying.
Okay.
One warning with that one is, when say it starts cooking a little bit, if you put on too much of the green grass clippings, it will cook the roots. So if it's got too much green in it, green grass clippings or green palm fronds, don't put it that deep. You can put
Not
them
at the 3 to 4 foot.
Right. Put them a few inches deep.
Okay.
And add some some brown organic matter on top of it, and that works great.
Okay.
But don't put green grass clippings and the green palm fronds more than 6 inches deep or so.
So browns are okay at 3 to 4 foot,
Right.
if you want to go that high.
Right.
But greens would be okay up to maybe a
A
foot.
foot higher or less, depending on how
Gotcha.
green the grass clippings are. Google or do a search on for sheep composting. That's basically what I'm doing. Great book. Roger Brookbank, I think, is the author. It's called Southwest Desert Gardening.
Okay.
He is one that has a good book about that sheep composting, the way we garden here in Arizona.
And that kind of leads me to my next question. I've had some folks tell me that, well, in the forest, in the wild, no one is mulching. So why should we have to mulch? And my response to that is, we're not in the forest. We don't have any organic material here in the desert.
Yes. But actually in the forest, they are mulching. All of the trees, leaves fall down onto the ground. Underneath the tree, where it's the exact nutrients that that tree needs, and you've got the worms and microorganisms underneath the tree that break it down and put it right back to the tree.
Okay.
So it's basically natural as you can get. Seems to work great. We can show you around, show you some things that are working.
Definitely. Yeah, and I think right about now we'll take you on a little tour of Doug's front and backyard, and we'll show you the results of his hard labor of 20, 30 years of mulching, basically just dumping another man's trash on top of the ground, and we'll see how that's working for him.
This is a fig tree. This is called a panache tiger fig.
Yeah.
And this is outside of my yard, basically. This is the easement. The rest of my property gets irrigation, but this doesn't get irrigation. So it's even more important to use the mulch there so I don't have to water.
Right.
This tree is only about 5 years old. You can see it's taking off.
And now you're on flood irrigation,
Flood irrigation.
which I have that as well. We're lucky enough to have it. Most people don't have that.
That works really good. If you can get a place with flood irrigation, it makes a big difference. But no,
Right.
you don't have to have it. If I didn't have flood irrigation, like out here on the street, it's even more important to mulch.
Right.
So I don't use so much water.
So if you're hand watering or using automated water, it's like you just said, it's even more important, that you should be mulching.
Right.
You know, and actually I was just thinking, your easement looks better than 99% of our yards. I mean, you've got a mature food forest out here along the street. This isn't even part of your property.
Yeah, so this really isn't my property. This is the city property.
Right.
But I've got probably 5 pecan trees and 15 or 20 pomegranates, or the rare seedless pomegranates, and guavas and figs, and so I've got 100 trees maybe out here. It's not my property.
Right.
And they're great. Love the fresh figs. Okay, here we are in a place out in the front yard that want to show you the results of all the mulching.
Yes.
This is a place that I started putting mulch again 1990, so it's been 20, 30 years. And each year or so I would put on 3 feet deep and have the worms eat it down. So this is the result. You want to come in and zoom in on this. Daisy, come over here. You can see the old soil here. Where I started is kind of a clay soil. It's not very good soil. It's almost impervious to water.
Right.
But now that I put on all of the worm castings, you know, it's not 6, 8 inches deep. Works great. You can see the tree roots are right in the top edge there looking for nutrients. It has greatly improved the drainage of my soil. When I first moved in, the first irrigation that I had, the water stayed for 4 or 5 days and just ponded and grew mosquitoes and whatever else. Now when I get irrigation, water's gone within a day or two,
Right.
completely, usually the next day.
So you are on heavy clay here.
Pretty heavy clay.
Right.
But when I dig a hole to put in a tree, I dig a nice hole, square hole we found out better, and dig down below the clay soil, so I get to a layer that's kind of a reddish layer with some little white balls that are calcium balls, and that's what the trees are looking for, and that gives me the good drainage.
Okay. So dig as deep as possible.
Or until you get past the bad layer. If you really want to find out if your hole is good enough, deep enough, dig the hole wherever you want, put the hose in it, fill it clear full of water, come back the next morning and leave it overnight, and it should be gone or mostly gone. If it hasn't dropped enough, you haven't gone deep enough. You haven't got through the bad layer.
Okay.
Now if I put a hose in here, it's gone within an hour or so.
The first thing that strikes me is the richness of your soil that you've created. So you're on heavy clay, which doesn't drain.
Right.
And instead of tearing up the entire yard, you've basically created a new soil level, a new soil layer on top of that.
Correct.
And that's what the trees are growing into now. Now I notice also that you have your mulch right up against the tree trunks.
That's always a controversy. People saying you can't do it. Very rarely do I have any problem with it.
Okay.
The only time I've had a problem with it is if you get some green palm fronds,
Right.
put it right up against and it gets hot and it burns and it could kill the tree.
Okay.
But usually I haven't had a problem with it. If you want, be careful and just pull it away from the tree trunk.
usually
That's
about
fine.
6
Just
inches
pull
off
it
the
back
tree.
6-8 inches or whatever, and that's generally not a problem. Okay, this is one of the very best parts of doing all this is enjoying the fruits of your labor.
Right.
So I get a great kick out of reaching right in and picking my own banana, you know, having that for breakfast. I don't know if you've had a freshly ripened banana, probably.
Thank you, sir.
But to be able to pick them fresh and green right off the tree is fantastic. It's like eating a store-bought tomato versus a homegrown tomato. So much better flavor, just incredible.
That's actually really, really good. And the first thing I noticed here is not only do you have a banana plant, you have a banana forest.
Bananas,
and they're buried under a couple foot of mulch there.
Bananas do really good if you treat them right. Again, they like the mulch. All the banana roots, they're very fine, small roots. They're in the top 6-8 inches of soil.
Right.
So if you've got that old, awful clay soil and plant bananas, then you won't do very good. Dig a good hole and put on a lot of mulch and keep it well mulched, and they do great. I have maybe 30 different varieties of bananas and maybe 100 different clumps, I guess you could say.
Right.
And so far this year I've picked over 20 bunches of bananas like this, and I still got another 20 to go that are ripening up in various stages. They will freeze back because if I get much frost, and I'm in a much colder area than most parts of the valley,
Right.
I normally hit 25 every year, and the bananas freeze way back, but then they come back out and produce great bananas that same year.
The mulch works as insulation for the soil.
It will.
So in a cold winter, even if the tops of the trees burn back, as long as the roots are kept warm
Right.
and alive, they'll come back in the spring.
Doesn't hurt the roots at all. The banana will freeze back to the trunk, but starts going right back out of the trunk and still produces a bunch. This year it was quite a bit warmer.
Right.
They didn't freeze back hardly at all, so I've got a lot more bananas this year than I have in years past. And we've really enjoyed the bananas.
Oh, yeah.
Get a bunch like that, and you notice they ripen from the top down. So I start picking the bananas here and eat my way down, and when it gets down about here, finally the whole bunch becomes ripe, and then you have to pick the whole thing and take it in.
Right.
Some varieties are better than others. This is Numwa that has a short, fat trunk, so it doesn't fall over in the wind.
What is your opinion on the ice cream banana?
Ice cream banana is a novelty more than anything else. They call it ice cream only because it has a white sheen on the outside of the banana. It has very good flavor, really, really good flavor. But again, it is more of a tall, skinny banana,
Right.
so you have to prop it. So if you look back over here, this is where I had to prop a bunch up. So I took this, I'll take it down. I picked the bunch of bananas off of this a few days ago. So this is support because the banana bunch gets so heavy it will actually break and die.
Okay.
So if I get one that's leaning or it's too heavy, I just bring this underneath here and prop it up, whatever angle to hold it up into place so it doesn't fall over and die. But I don't have that problem with the short, fat bananas like the Namwa or the Rajapuri or some of the other dwarfs.
Well, and regarding the height of the ice cream bananas and how susceptible they are to falling over, that's something I learned from you a long time ago. And I try to, if somebody wants to purchase that, so be it, but I kind of try to steer folks towards other varieties for that reason, because not everyone wants to do this. This is impressive, Doug. So it's been a year since I've been out here. But
it's fun to see what grow. And
I mean, for the entryway into your home, someone has to walk through a tropical fruit forest, not a tree or two, but literally it's a jungle of food, cool stuff. And once again, I've kind of forgotten we're actually in Arizona.
Yeah, people don't realize you can grow them here in Arizona, but yes, you can do it if you're willing to put in a little bit extra work and
create a healthy soil, proper watering, proper feeding.
It works great.
Yeah. So, Mr. Doug, thank you for allowing us to come on out.
You're welcome. It's been fun.
Yeah, it's been a little while since I've been out here, and this is really, really cool. And I'm hoping that for the viewers out there and the first timers, that the takeaway from this is not, hey, that you can grow some cool trees, but how you're able to grow them. And that's through the mulching. Never stop with that. Keep adding.
Correct. Basically, what I found is you can grow just about anything you want to.
Right.
Whatever you enjoy eating, you can do it if you do a little bit to change the microclimate and the watering system and stuff, and you can grow just about whatever you'd like to eat. I love eating the bananas, crushed bananas and mangoes, so I spent some time. I also have all the other stuff. I have the blueberries and apricots and plums and all that stuff. I've lost a lot of Texas root rot, but I still grow them and really enjoy eating all that stuff that you can't buy in the grocery store.
Right.
So that's the whole idea behind it, is to grow what you like to eat and do a little bit of extra in your yard to make it happen.
Definitely.
It works great.
That shows. It shows. The proof's in the pudding here. Thank you, sir.
It's really good. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Been a fun morning. Thanks.